All right, looks like we're live.
Hello, trampoline friends. Welcome back to a Trampoline Insight. I'm Nuno Marino alongside Steven Gluckston, and today it's episode 10.
Hey guys, we are going to be answering some questions that you guys had sent us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Gmail, and we got lots of questions, and hopefully you guys got some questions that you can send in to us. We'll be following on Instagram, on YouTube, watching your comments. So if you guys have an opinion on something, type away. Let's talk. All right, Nuno, what's our first question? Who's it from?
So while we wait for other questions, why don't we start with the first one that we have here? So from Nicholas Mini from Carolina Elite, Nicholas asked, the two-trick competition and other that encourages more difficult and creative skills, I don't see this kind of competition being acceptable by FIG. However, don't you think it can be included in XGames?
So I think that's kind of a two-part question. Number one, do you think FIG would ever come around to two-trick?
I find it hard. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I find it hard to see a format with just two skills. I think it's too short for the public to see.
But what is double mini?
Yes, okay, so we already have double mini, so why having a trampoline just with two skills? But as a complement, you know, as Free Volton Cup does it or something like that, I can see that happening, but I don't know. I think FIG right now has other things on their plate more important than actually thinking about the two-trick competition. That's all.
But FIG just adopted parkour, did they not? Like, no one in a million years would ever think that parkour would be a gymnastics discipline.
That is true. That is true.
Right? So, I mean, I don't think it's so far-fetched.
I agree with Nicholas here. I think in the XGames it would make a lot more sense. I really could see it in the XGames.
You don't think it'd be too much of an overlay to have the same equipment, the same people, everything the same? It's just two skills instead of 10, and they're completely on two different ends of the spectrum, right? That's I don't know. That's like well, there's skateboarding in the Olympic Games and in X Games at the same time, right? So I guess
right, exactly.
Answer, you know, against my own argument.
I think if it's two different competition formats, I think it's possible. I think it's possible, to be honest. I could see it both ways. I think if the technical committee really wanted to change everything, I could see it putting it like, I don't know, the top four, for example. You do your normal competition format, you get to the top four. The top four go to a 2-3 competition, just first against fourth, for example, second against the third,
right?
And then whoever wins does the final.
But usually,
I could see that being.
I would usually, not all the time. Usually, I feel like, well, at least nowadays, the top competitors wouldn't be the ones winning two-trick. I feel like it's like the middle chunk of crazy people, you know, that are, you know, really passionate about the sport and not necessarily passionate about medals and doing routines all the time, and like the artistic and creative side that would be doing the crazy two-trick competition. But I was excited when FIG put in the two difficulty skills for compulsory for senior elite, because at first it literally turned into a two-trick. People were getting so creative, putting a big trick at the end, a big trick at the beginning, and one at the end, and like people started throwing like full and Rudi Outs, and you saw way more Miller plus and all these different skills. And then it went to 4, and people were like, well, I can't really go crazy with 4 skills. That's like half of an optional, right? So we kind of saw a little step back. So I really enjoyed those two skills, because it gave that an opportunity to do skills you would never do in an optional routine, right? But you could do in a compulsory routine because you were much higher, had more energy. What did you like the two difficulty skills? Because you came from when there was 0, right? We both came from 0 and we both went to 2, right? So what was your take on those two difficulty skills?
I'll be honest. I always thought a compulsory should be a compulsory. If it's a compulsory, it should be just execution. Should be no difficulty there. That was,
Yeah.
and I competed the 2 and the 4, and I really think a compulsory should have stayed a compulsory. I really think I'm going to enjoy this new format for 2022. I really wish I would compete under those rules, but I won't be able to. I will only be able to appreciate other people competing under those rules. But for me, a compulsory should have stayed a compulsory. And I think these kind of competitions, 2 skills, maybe even 5 skills. There was a coach in the past that proposed doing 5 skills, like first routine with 10 skills, second routine with 5 skills. I think these kind of things, they fit under a certain parameter. I think it's possible to do. I don't think FIG will do it, but I think that's why these international competitions exist, right? Free vault,
Right.
Cup is really famous because of their 2 competition, and I think we shouldn't remove that fame of Free Vault Cup just by doing it worldwide. But
do you think, and this is another thing that, because I think a lot of people have like tried very hard, but I think people have hinted towards trying to put some either double mini or tumbling or trampoline into the X Games. But I think one of the main concerns, at least from what I've heard from like the audience, not people that work in the X Games, but is like the uniform, right? And like the uptightness on execution, right? So what's your take on the uniform?
So I totally agree with that. That's exactly the comments I hear as well. The X Game are not as uptight as we are, right? They don't require a leotard, or they wouldn't require a leotard if we were there, and it gives more freedom to those things. And I think that's exactly where this kind of competition fits in. I could see a 2-trick competition in the X Games being really, really good, with a whole new environment around it, I think, and in shorts and long shorts, more like skateboarder style. I know Diogo Ganchinho would be really happy with that.
I think a lot of people would be happy with that.
A lot of people would be happy with that, which is something that I don't think we'll ever see at the FIG level, because it's more structured, more formal, more like we were born, like we're raised to believe, right? It's just different.
I'm curious if they're going to start kind of swinging the other way, especially with the popularity in parkour and G trampoline, those kinds of things. I wonder if FIG is interested in any of that, or if they're interested in kind of taking that crew under their wing. I know they've already taken parkour, but what about, like the backyard trampolining or garden trampoline as it's called?
We just had a comment from Tumble Tom, thought of Greg Rose Freestyle Trampoline Organization, right? And I actually don't know much about it. Can always investigate and know more. But I could see, I don't know, that organization scares, not the organization, the garden trampoline itself scares me a little bit. I feel like, I don't want to talk a lot of what I don't know, but I feel like they're missing something there. There's a lot of home learning by themselves that scares me. Okay, I think the same thing can probably be done in the gym, more safety. I really think so. Now, could those athletes, for example, do those competitions, those garden trampoline competitions in a 7x14? That would be recognized under the X Games, for example. I don't know, or even they could join the 2-trick competition. But it seems that they're very interested in doing something out of the stomach drops and back drops, and skills from feet to feet doesn't seem to be a lot. I see a lot of kabooms. I feel like every video I see a kaboom. A kaboom to do as many flips as they can until they land on their heads. That's all I feel like I see. I'm sure there are people there that don't just do that, but I feel like every time I open a video on Facebook, that's what I see. So it just scares me. I'm sorry, it just scares me. I guess I'm a person that I've seen a lot in this world, and there's certain things that I don't want to see again. I really don't want to see again. So very careful with what we do.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Again, I haven't explored, too much of what the rules imply and what kind of safety precautions they take. But when I heard that there was a technical term called necking, then that kind of made me stay away. So apparently there's a safe way to land on your neck.
Oh, there is. Oh,
Well,
I'm so
I
happy
guess
to hear that. Can I learn it?
So I think that with Free Vaulting Cup, and I think Grensland Cup, and I'm trying to remember some other ones that had the 2-trick competition. I think, or Dave Ross's Big Splash or Reach for the Sky.
Reach for the Sky.
Where Reach for the Sky. These competitions, these unorthodox.
See,
well,
I
wouldn't
think that's
say
what
Free
we
Vaulting
should
Cup
bring
and stuff
back.
is that, right? Is the unorthodox additions to the competition, and I think with that would kind of be what CrossFit did for weightlifting. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically the sport of weightlifting wasn't very popular, right? I would say it's similar to trampoline, right? It's popular, but it's no women's artistic or anything, right? And a lot of people started getting into CrossFit, and a huge part of CrossFit is weightlifting. And so people kind of went through CrossFit and said, I really like the weightlifting, and then started competing in weightlifting, the sport of weightlifting. So I think if we kind of put in conjunction these 2-trick competitions and invite maybe some of the garden trampoline athletes, and they come in to see the two trick, they participate in the 2-trick, and then they see what else is going on, maybe they'd have more interest in learning proper progressions and more skills. So
I agree. Wish have Dave Ross on the. I leave a comments to. I think it would be great for him to organize the Reach for the Sky.
Yeah, I agree.
Would love that.
So you froze up there for a second, Nuno, but I think one of the big things that Reach for the Sky did was the Big Splash competition. So for those people that don't know about the Big Splash, the trampoline was pushed up to the edge of, I don't remember if it was like a lake or a reservoir or what it was, big body of water. And athletes would do tricks from the trampoline into the water. And whoever got the most cheers, I think would advance to the next round. But people were going crazy. And I think there's footage somewhere. I think
it's in some of the Bill Kopp tapes. I believe I have them.
So Matt Turgeon did a skill. I think he did it on the trampoline too. I think he called it the Holy Shifus. And it was like, it was a quad. And I think it was like front, full half or something like that. And I think he might have done it on Super Tramp. And he called it.
Did he do one to stomach in the water?
In the Big Splash? I think so.
Yeah.
He did one where he like starfished completely out and landed on his stomach or back on purpose.
But if I remember correctly, that ended as a Rudi. So it might have been front full Rudi or something like that.
Maybe. Yeah. I got to find those videos. Someone has them. If you have them, send them over.
I have them.
That was so much fun. The Big Splash?
I have them. I have some of the Big Splash, the productions that Bill Kopp did, but I don't have everything.
And then they had the 2-trick competition, and Carl Hager did quad Cody, I think, to his face.
I would love to see that one.
Cody. Yeah, that was a good one.
That might be.
Gundam.
It might be there. Might be on my server. I have a server with a lot of trampoline videos. I just copied the entire server to another place. It was more than 1 terabyte of videos. So, and I was just adding some more today.
All right, so let's get to the next question, also from Nick, right? So yeah, also from Nick. He asks, in many clubs, ceiling height is limited, right? Do you have any favorable or unfavorable thoughts on jumping outside with appropriate padding around the trampoline, obviously as weather permits? Have you jumped outside?
I did.
Practice?
I did plenty of exhibitions outside. I never
Right.
really practiced on a consistent basis outside. But we have some athletes that were part of the American national team, Stuart Pritchard, that trained outside for several times of the year, and I think it would be great if you could share some photos, and if we will, we'll put them on the description below on the video of him, where we can see the trampoline, everything around is snow, and he's jumping outside. So I would love to
Ooh,
see.
that's tough.
That. So on the question, I think on a permanent basis, I don't think it's a solution. That's
Right.
the problem. I think maybe it can be done as an emergency, yes, but as on a permanent basis, I don't see it as a solution, because like the question says, weather permitting, what does that mean? If you have a week that is raining, it's a week that you don't train.
Right.
So you're always limited. You're always limited because of that.
So I know there's a guy named Bill Young in Connecticut, and there's Sean Kennedy, who was on the senior national team for a couple years. Kyle Bowen came from there. This guy named Nathan Gibo, who was really good at level 10, and then he was pretty good at junior and senior elite. He was I don't want to say trampoline guru, but like of the Northeast. He had a trampoline club with at minimum 10 trampolines, but the problem was his first trampoline club, the ceiling heights were only 16 feet. So he would take the trampolines outside, and I remember I used to go up there on some weekends to go train just for fun with other people, and we would take the trampolines outside, and it was awesome. It was a blast, especially when it's a nice day, sunny outside. I'd say at first it's a little bit weird getting used to being outside, but I think it was phenomenal. It was great. However, depending on where you live, I think it can only be done, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 6 months out of the year, right? Well, I guess that's where I'm from, in New Jersey, New York area, right? Alabama, you might be able to do more. So I think it's okay. But like you said, I wouldn't.
We could probably do it.
How many months do you think you could do in Alabama?
I think we could probably do 7 to 8 months of the year, I guess. But the question is even in those 8 months, it still rains at least 1 or 2 days a week.
Right.
Right. So, but
yeah.
So Tom is saying that we had a team in the Midwest or MD. What's MD?
Maryland.
And Maryland.
Yep.
That trained outside years ago. The team was called the Outsiders. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. I remember that. And then they used to train in the winter, and they would literally go in sleeping bags in between their turns, like mummy sleeping bags to try to stay warm. So that's commitment if I've ever seen it.
So in the gym that I used to train in Portugal, there is no heating. So I train with the covers inside the gym. So I don't even want to know what was it to train outside.
Right. I know. I've had those days where I'm just had a hat, gloves, a big winter jacket, and then when it's your turn, you take it all off, go jump, and then bring it back, put it all back on in between your turns.
So we have a question here. Is it true that trampoline is the only gymnastic sport that uses electronic devices for scores? What is your opinion about that in terms of progression for the sport?
Well, I think it's fantastic. I think that the more objective we can get these scores, the better, right? And I think that's what they were going for, right? Is how can we get these scores more objective? I think like when you look at rhythmic gymnastics or figure skating, one of the biggest problems the audience has is, I loved that routine. Why didn't that win first place? Oh, that's because this judge was, cheating or gave a low score. So trying to get away from that. I think it's fantastic. I think there's a lot less error, but I don't know if it's the only gymnastic sport that uses electronic devices for scores. I'm not certain.
I actually think right now it is. I'm not totally sure, but I actually think right now it is, because rhythmic doesn't have it. Artistic, they're working on it, but doesn't have it yet. Aerobics, I don't think they have it. Acro, I don't think they have it either. There is nothing objective, not objective. There's no component by electronic devices, and that's, I agree with you. That's exactly what I like on these devices, that they make 3 components out of the 4 components we have on the score objective, that no one can. Well, of course, the device can have problems. It can fail. Yes, that's why there is backup. But when it doesn't fail, it's equal for everyone. So it's perfect. The more objective we can get, the better. And I just wish, I believe it was, I don't remember if it was Toshiba. I think it was Toshiba that want to score gymnastics skills.
And I think
totally
making
by the computer.
I think they're making leeway, right? That they
they're working on it. They're working on it. I'm not sure how far ahead they are, because it's not so easy to do it. I think if they would focus themselves on us, I think it would be much easier to do than gymnastics. But obviously, we're not as important as gymnastics, so we're not the first priority there. But I think that would be something that would be phenomenal for us, because then even execution could be judged by an electronic device, and then we would have no subjective component. Everything would be objective. How can it be better than that?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, for those people that don't know or haven't heard about how it is, it basically measures the lines. I've only seen it for bars, but basically it measures if you're straight up and down on the bar, or if you become straight here, or it measures angles. And basically, just like trampoline, right, from here to here might be 0 or 1/10 deduction, and then if you hit your handstand a little bit later, the deduction gets higher. And you're exactly right. If you apply that to trampoline, and if you can measure the straight line and how long it stays straight for, then you wouldn't even need an execution judge.
Lawrence say just remove the execution entirely. Done.
What becomes our sport? A 10-trick competition.
Yeah, like who jumps the highest?
So Lawrence also dropped a question here. How do you balance weight training and trampoline time while in competition season? And how do you structure your weight training to work towards the ideal body composition for trampoline? So me personally, and the athletes that I train with weight training, none of it, I wouldn't say none, I would say 99% of it has nothing to do with body composition. I don't make my athletes train us to look a certain way. I think that is done in the kitchen. If you want to get bigger, right, then you eat more. If you're looking to get skinnier, which I don't suggest, is normally not a good thing for your body, right, then you go on a caloric deficit, you eat less, right, or you can change how you're eating. So I think a lot of that body composition has to do with nutrition and not really anything to do with weight training. And I think a lot of people,
Steven, you can manage a little bit of that with the tempo of the exercises. I think that also important. I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's also important the tempo of the exercises. If you do a lot of eccentric versus eccentric, it will change the goal of that exercise for you. So I think that also has a little bit.
But I don't think that it's going to change your body. Like your muscles aren't going to get bigger, right? So like for me, I started weight training and I didn't gain an ounce, right? It's all about how you eat, if you want to get bigger. But as far as weight training for me in season and out of season, I would build strength out of season. So like after world championships, I'd take maybe a couple of weeks of trampoline and maybe work on just the basics of trampoline, and that's where I would increase my strength, right? My pulling, deadlift, squatting, shoulder press, stuff like that, slow, strong movements. And then in beginning of the season to mid-season, I would try to increase my power, right? Kettlebell swings, power cleans, power snatches, various movements. And then anytime there was a competition coming up, I would probably like 10 to 14 days before the competition, I would stop all weight training and just do like calisthenics, like body weight stuff. So that's a quick answer. I mean, I could talk for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours on weight training. And we can talk.
You could,
we can talk.
really talk for more than 4 hours on that.
So we can rep schemes. Man, that's tough. You go in waves, right? That's like asking how many optionals do you do in a training, right? It could be 0, it could be 1, it could be 10, right? It all really depends on how.
I think this would be something that Lawrence can approach you and me directly, and then we can try and build a program for him. I think you'd probably be more specialized for that. Yeah, weight training was never my passion. I had a personal training course in Portugal. I worked at the gym, but it was never really my passion. But I think Steven really enjoys it. So it's something that Lawrence, you're more than welcome to approach Steven, and Steven will help you with that for sure. I think
Absolutely.
because to do all that reps and sets and rest time and the tempo of each exercise, I think needs to be very individualized and
for sure
with what goal you have in mind and where you want to peak. Which right now in the situation that we are, we don't even know when we want to peak. So I guess that's the biggest problem.
That's exactly right, and I think it has to
with all the.
I think it also has to do a lot with where they are in their career, where they are in the year, right? There's so much that plays into it. So yeah, absolutely reach out to me. We can talk and figure something out for you. All right, let's go to the next question. It says, also from Nick. Nick submitted a bunch of good questions. It says, I coach a few talented kids that had a lot of success in years past, but are now struggling to break out onto the podium at the elite and senior elite levels. Would you be willing to share advice on what takes such athletes from good to great?
So this is when I received this question, when I thought this was a great question. I really think this is a phenomenal question, because this goes into the details of what makes great coaches, right? Because we're not just talking about teaching them skills. We're not just talking about doing a routine we're talking about prepare them to perform at that point in time the way we want them to perform. And I think that's where being a coach really translates to being a coach. and I know I'm not going to be able to answer your question, because it's really individualized, and I think you need to get to know your athlete really, really well. See what makes him tick and perform at that point in time, even by doing mock meets all the week before, for example. This is just an example. Or by not doing mock meets at all. It might just make him in a state of mind that's not helpful. I think it comes from the back. There is one rule that I apply for me a lot, and I think I'm a very ambitious coach. I'm a very demanding coach. So there is one thing that I do on a consistent basis. That is, the week of the competition, I really don't push towards the negative anymore. I push towards the positive feedback to build their confidence toward that competition. Sometimes some athletes need to be a little bit less than or more than longer than 1 week, right? But most of the time, 1 week is enough for me to stop saying what's wrong, to start saying, well, that was really good, and let's continue this and this and this, and let's do one more and this, and that way you can shift the perspective of the training from it was okay to all trainings were better to give them confidence towards the competition. And just a rule that I have on the competition side, there are no bad things. Okay, of course there are bad things, but there are nothing that it's influence enough for me to call out on the negative side. It's okay, they're a mistake. Okay, let's change this to this. Okay, and this will improve it. And they're always talking in a way that will give them confidence. Because I do agree with you, Nick. I understand this question. This is the tough part of the coach's job, is how to make a good athlete a great athlete by performing where they need to perform at that point in time. That's a tough part. What do you think, Steven?
I think, I mean, there's so many different variables, but if I think, to summarize, if I could hit 2 points, right? Number one, being able to identify weaknesses, right? So if you're just having an athlete come in and say, let's do 5 optionals. Let's work this because that's what the Chinese are doing, and let's do this, right? You have to be able to identify where that athlete is weak so that you can strengthen that area, right? And that could be a physically weak component, right? Or a mentally weak component, or an emotionally weak component, or a very specific technical weak component. It could be your shoulder mobility and your takeoffs, right? It could be so many different things, and it's up to the coach to assess that, because the athlete doesn't know. They're just coming in and working their hardest, and they're like, why am I not getting better, right? So the coach has to just be able to look, and maybe it's not look, maybe it's listen, maybe they're an emotional weakness, maybe something's going on at home that you know, they're super sensitive about, and it's carrying over to their training. You know, and the second point is motivation, right? If you can get an athlete motivated, right? If you have a good enough relationship that they trust you and you motivate them, they will do anything for you. They will jump through the ceiling. They will kick out harder, right? But if that trust isn't there, then, and that motivation isn't there, then that athlete's just gonna stay good. So, and it's hard. I think there's a lot of people that aren't compatible with their coaches, and it sucks, because that athlete could be amazing and that coach is amazing, but together they don't click, right? And that athlete could be amazing, and it's just, I think it's really important for that coach and athlete to have a relationship where they motivate each other. So that's just two things. Yeah.
I just want to add something onto that, and I think that's really great. And for me, I think taking my athletes to be coached by other coaches, it tells me a lot, because it shows me what other coaches can push for them that I sometimes cannot, and it allows me to change in a way to whenever they're at home training with me, be able to push them the same way. You know, there's a lot of athletes, and I was one of them. I love like bets and jokes. Oh, let's bet. I bet you can't do optional today. You look so tired. I bet you can't do optional today, right? And you know, my coach, he can tell you that it's all true. We made plenty of bets during practice times, and I won a few. You won a few. I think I won more, but still, that's not the point here. But it's that kind of interaction, like Steven was saying, with the relationship. It's important to create that relationship so you can interact with that. And sometimes by taking your athletes to train with other athletes and coaches, you learn a lot about that athlete, a lot, a ton. That's why when we started doing camps here, I pushed to do a lot more camps, because I think that's what allows to develop. It was whenever I made a big jump, was whenever I started doing training camps, national team training camps. And I know we've been having some misfortunes lately, but I think things will go back to normal, and we'll go back to go camps. We have a few more questions, right,
Jared,
Steven?
yeah, Jared messaged in. It's pertaining to that question. He said a coach's pride needs to be pushed aside. That's for certain, right? That's the only way you're going to create a relationship with your athletes, you know, for you both to be successful, is if that pride is pushed away.
So what about, what Brandon Flora says, what are your thoughts on using a variety of throw mats on trampoline? For example, I have been considering purchasing a 6-inch throw mat for training, currently only using a 4-inch.
I mean, I think the thicker the mat is, the more height it takes away from the athlete, right? If you were to throw a 3-foot mat, that takes away 3 feet of height for their landing. So, I mean, when you're talking about inches, you know, I think it depends on the skill. We have 3 or 4 different sized mats, and depends if you're learning a new skill. We have the marshmallow mat, I think, which is like either 10 or 12 or maybe even more, right? And inches, and we slide that in when they're learning new skills, right? We have a thinner mat when maybe you're connecting half out to back layout for the first time, and you throw that really thin 1-inch mat and they can flip off of it. So my opinion is go for it. Have the 4-inch mat, have the 6-inch mat, have an 8-inch mat for different scenarios.
I was going to say the same thing. And I don't even have many different mats. I have basically an 8-inch and a 4-inch, but I think when you don't have a pit, having different size mats has helped us a lot, because you can use those squishy mats, like Steven is saying. What did you call them?
Marshmallow.
A marshmallow.
It's because it's a big giant white mat.
Yes, with foam inside and makes it soft. So it's like a pit that you put on top of the tramp, right? It's not really a pit, but it kind of simulates the same thing, especially when they're learning the first progressions and the first time they're doing the skill. It's really helpful. It's really, really helpful. So if you have the opportunity to do it, I think you should do it, and it's going to be beneficial to you. I think it's going to help you with things that you might not have. If you have a pit, I'm not sure it will help that
if
much.
it's necessary,
but if it's necessary, it can be used still. But with no pit, for sure, that would be very, very helpful, I think. Okay, why don't we go to the next question? That's an interesting question, the next one. I like it.
Yeah. So Gary asks, can you see the women's DD record being beaten over the next 5 years? Why do you think DD hasn't progressed over the past 5 to 10 years compared to the men?
Okay, so I see that record being beaten. I see it being beaten.
Yeah.
But my first question is, who knows what's the world record for DD for women and men? Since we're talking about it, who knows? Because I think
didn't
men is Jason.
Sam Sandell did 15.8 or 16.0.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think Sam
But if
Sandell did
someone
either
knows,
15.8 or 16.0.
let us know in the comments.
But the difficulty record hasn't been beaten since 2010. It was 2010 Nissen Cup in Davos, Switzerland. Jason Burnett did 18.8. So in 10 years, the difficulty has not been beaten, right? So I think the average difficulty has progressed more maybe with the men. And I think I think the average 16.0 for the women.
Yes, but I don't know who did it. Who did it, Garrett?
I'm pretty sure it was Sam Sandell. Oh, Emma Smith.
Emma Smith, 16.0.
Was that her 3 triple routine?
Yep, yeah, it was.
Yeah. I remember that.
I remember that too. I just didn't know it was the record. But I can see it being beaten now with the new rules. I really can. I think the girls are gonna push a little bit more the envelope. I really do. I think the men will push it too. But the girls, I think that's where we're going to see the biggest evolution is in the girls.
And I think that it hasn't been pushed because it hasn't needed to be pushed, right? There needs to be more pioneers, right? Emma Smith, Sam Sandell, when were they doing those pushing the envelope for the more difficulty, right? We haven't seen anyone really going after it. Everyone's now taken this strategic approach of combining HD with time of flight, with execution, with difficulty into this overall score. And you need someone to have that reckless attitude that says, you know what, screw the score. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take it to the next level. And then all the other athletes open their eyes and they start chasing that person. And that's how it starts. But we haven't seen that.
Only want to win medals now. They only want to win medals. They don't want to be known by someone that hit the world record score. It's not cool.
Right.
It used to be really cool.
So, but I think also another reason why the women haven't progressed on difficulty as much as the men is since time of flight was added, the men exponentially took off with their scores, and then they reached are what we see normal, right? For the first routine, it might be mid 18s, high 18s, for the second routine, mid to high 17s to 18s, right? So the men got there a lot faster. So now they're like, okay, let's take a break on time of flight. Let's add some difficulty. And the women are still, trucking along, trying to make their way up to the highest, their highest time of flight. So I feel like the reason why is because women are still working on time of flight and haven't gotten to that point yet. Andrew says Sam Smith did 16.2 in 2016. Did she compete that? And was it nationally or internationally if she competed it? So, but yeah, that's another one.
While we discuss this one and while we think a little bit more about this one, there is a good question here that I use a lot. So how do you use video feedback and time of flight stopwatch times during training sessions? Do you use video feedback? What app do you use? And I know, and we're going to talk a little bit about this on the next episode, on episode 12. We have a little giveaway to do on episode 12. So everything will be on the episode description of episode 12, how to enter that giveaway. And we will talk about equipment on episode 12 and explain a little bit about every piece of equipment and that we use in the gym and that we compete on. So, but what's your take? What do you use for video feedback, and what do you use for stopwatch, time of flight? What do you use?
So the way that our gym is set up, right? We had multiple rows, so we had different systems for each row. So we had a 32-inch TV, and we had it hooked up to a laptop, and this was set up since 2012 maybe, and it was, the application that we used is Kinovia, I believe that's how it's pronounced. But now there's so many different software. So, and then on the other set of trampolines, we would set up an iPad, which is not as big as a TV screen, but I mean, I don't know which gym can afford flat screen TVs for every single trampoline, right? So we use the iPads, and I'm trying to remember, maybe it's like OC delay or something like this that we might use. And then for time of flight, we have a few VeriFlights system on the we have a few VeriFlight systems set up on 3 or 4 trampolines, and then we use stopwatch, and then we'll deduct it. It depends on the levels. You know, for the front trampolines, we'll use stopwatch for the lower levels, and as they become elites and senior elites, then we'll use the other systems.
So I have one I think it's 55-inch or 50-inch TV that I have that get 2 trampolines that usually the ones that the seniors use the most, and I use just an iPhone, and I found that the iPhone is better than the iPad, because the iPhone, whenever it sends to the TV, it populates the whole TV. The iPad has an aspect ratio that leaves 2 black bars on the side. So I use an iPhone, just an older iPhone 6, I think that I have, an older iPhone, and I use Bust a Move video delay, BAM video delay. It's actually a artistic gymnastics app. You can separate the screen in 4, you can separate it in 2, and you have 2 different delays or 4 different delays. And I used to use OC delay, and then I communicate with the developer a little bit, and then I saw a couple of years back maybe that he got cancer and he stopped developing the app. So then I moved to the other one, and the other one keeps being updated through the iOS updates as well. So it has been really, really reliable, and it works great. It takes the entire TV. It works great. I used to have it connected by a cable with the adapter, and lately I even tried just airplaying onto the Apple TV, and it worked good in the beginning. So I might do it again like that. So, nice. But that's what I've been using right now. For time of flight, I use VeriFlight as well. I was lucky enough that they asked me to help them with the beta and to help squash some bugs in their software, and I was able to get one of their products, and I really like it. It's really simple to set up. It only does time of flight, but it's really easy to set up. There is no cable.
No, it does synchro.
Nothing. Yes, time of flight and synchro. Well. Sorry, yeah. But no HD. No HD. Right. That's what I meant. But yes, it works. It's really reliable to me, really reliable. But most of all, I use the stopwatch. There's no doubt. I think all my references are still on stopwatch time, and I enjoy it. It's just easier to just grab a stopwatch and press the button. We use stopwatch a lot. For certain when I do mock meets, I for sure will use the VeriFlight for sure. Yeah. But when I'm not doing mock meets, I basically do stopwatch, and I try, and this really depends on time of the season, but I try to have at least one routine timed, at least one every 2 days, especially when in not competitive season or in transition period. That they don't do that many routines. I don't even ask them to think. There are certain times, for example, and this is a time just like that. Whenever we go back to the gym, they're not going to go start with full routine right away. So I'm not going to use stopwatch for at least another month. I don't see competitions inside just yet. So for at least another month until they get back, I'm not even going to time any routine. There is no point in my opinion, right? But the video feedback is always there. It's always there, because from day one they enjoy it, or from the minute one that they start jumping, they enjoy to see what they're doing, and it makes a huge difference in my opinion.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it's a necessity. I think my training changed immensely. You know, when your coach is saying arms back or chest up, arms back, and you're like, I am, right. And then you go and you see it for yourself. You're like, oh, wow.
Oh, you
Okay.
mean
I get it
those arms
now.
back?
Yeah. And another app that I use on the iPad is because sometimes you can say, go watch, but sometimes you really need to like slow it down, pause it. So I'll use Coach's Eye. So you can watch in slow motion, you can pause it, you can draw the angles. So if you really need to give that like detailed feedback, especially when they're younger, I'll use Coach's Eye on the iPad.
Yeah, so this app, the best move video lay also does slow motion. You can pause it slow motion and export the video, but I don't think you can draw yet. I don't think so. Maybe it will be a future feature.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep cranking out these questions. So we have another one from Nick, and he asks, what comes first for you in your training progressions for double backs on trampoline? Full in, full out, or half in, half out? Why? So I think assuming athletes already know half out and non-twisting double back. So I think his question is supposed to read, what comes first for you in training progressions for a twisting double backs on trampoline? Yeah, I'll let you start.
Half-halves. For me, it's half-halves. That will be the next one after. Half-halves at the same time as Rudi Outs. That would be, I start Rudi Outs, I start half-halves. That would be my next step.
So I do half-halves as well. Do you teach full in back outs, Nuno?
I do not teach full in back outs, but I'm not against it. I think they're pretty fun. You know, I did them for fun. I think there is a time to do them, but I don't teach them to put them in a routine right now. I think they have other skills that they put on a routine. Same thing with full in back outs and back in full outs. I don't teach any of those right now. I go from half-halves straight to full-fulls.
Yeah.
So
I actually do the drills for full out, but I don't necessarily usually teach the whole skill. But they'll do the back layout, cruise, spot, duck under. I think it's important to learn the spots in the middle, especially when you're learning for the full. Exactly. So, and I don't do that with everybody. I'll do it. So I do these things called courage challenges with my athletes, and just to give them micro doses of being nervous and having to focus. Sometimes it'll be a drill, sometimes it'll be a play skill, like full twisting pullover or full twisting pullover to stomach, right? Something that they're nervous about. So I'll give them usually about, like, depending on the level, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, depending on the season as well. And they'll do these courage challenges, and that's usually one of the courage challenges. And they'll also do it from a pullover position. So they'll go back tuck to back, pull over, spot the trampoline, cruise, spot the trampoline, duck under. So that's another courage challenge that I really like to do. But they'll never do full in, back out, or back in, full out. I mean, they're good to know for aerial awareness. And I guess even with the double mini rules changing now, do you need to do them? You only need 2 passes, right?
Mm-hmm. So Gary sends us another suggestion for an app. Video Coach Mirror is very good. So I will look at that.
I've never tried it.
That out.
Yeah.
Me neither. But next week's episode, we'll talk about it. We'll see how it is, and we'll talk about next week's episode. Although we won't have much time to train on the gym, but we can try the apps.
All right. So speaking of skills, our next question, also from Nick, is the last question that I sent in. How do you teach Miller? Full, double, full, 1.5, 1.5, double, full, full.
Okay, so I teach full, double, full initially. The progressions that I do is for full, double, full, but then they do the transition, and I start asking for more and more and more of the transition for 1.5, 1.5. So in the end, because this is where the trick is, okay, I do full tuck and full pike with 1.5 Branny, but then I do full straight with full cruise Branny, right?
And
so
which do you teach
for my
first?
athletes, I teach the tuck and the pikes first. and then I let the straight for last, because it's much easier to increase on speed than to cut on speed, and I live that
Right.
problem. So
Yeah.
I know how hard it is to cut the speed of a skill to go from straight to tuck to pike. That was my problem. Right, so I teach tuck and pike first. I do the 1.5, duck under 1.5, branding, and then I go to straight, and then I do full cruise, flat back, and full cruise, and then branding to feet. Right, so when I start the Miller, I start through the straight. So they do the full cruise, full down, and then they only have half turn to go to feet. So it's basically a system of everything to flat back with half turn less than what would be to feet. And then from that point on is all going to feet. But so the first Millers might be a little bit full double full, because they want to see the cruise part, but then because they have that history of the full tuck and the full pike through the 1.5, that transition to the 1.5 is going to be like super fast. It's going to be super fast. I think maybe in less than a month they're doing 1.5 with a little glance after the 1.5, and they don't even notice.
So have you tried other ways, or that's the way that you've done always?
So I did personally, I did full double full. That's how people used to teach at the time. So I came from that. I watched a lot of Moskalenko movies, and then I transitioned. And then my Miller in the end was very different than full double full. Obviously, I'm not sure it was even a true full double full. I feel like for the initial steps, that's the easiest one to teach, in my opinion. But these kids right now, they come with a lot of experience of 1.5. You know, doing 1.5 position tuck or pike and Rudi, it's really not hard for them. They can do Miller tuck, Miller pike super easy, probably easier than Miller straight right now. But it's not a skill that I teach really fast. I take my time teaching those skills. They're not going to put those skills in a routine so early, so I take my time teaching those skills. They do trips before they even do Millers.
Yeah, absolutely. So funny story, the way I learned Miller. So when I was younger, I had a hard time twisting at the beginning. And 1.5 pike branny wasn't popular at all when I was learning this skill in, I don't know, 2003, 2004. And I learned full as half in Rudi Outs, piked, less piked, less piked, less piked, until I was pretty much doing like Arabian branny, cruise branny. And I learned full in, full out straight, and I felt full in, full out straight from an half in Rudi Outs. And then I was competing that, and I said, I don't know, maybe I was 15. I said, I want to do Miller. My coach said, well, you didn't really learn full, the orthodox way. So how are you going to do that? I said, I'm going to add a half turn or a full turn to the end. And my training partner at the time, Kyle Bowen, was like, you are stupid. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard anyone say in my entire life. I said, no, I'm going to do it. And then, young, cocky. And so I did, and I did it. And I did Miller to my feet, and it was fine. And I think I thought of it as full, double, full. But if you watch it on video, it was 1.5. Sometimes if I got stuck, it was even like double full. If you like really chopped and you had to pull it fast.
I think that's what happens. I think mentally it's easier to think about full, double, full. But then what is going to happen? It's really not that. It's going to be more 1.5.
Right. So, but the way I teach it now, so they'll learn full pike, right? 1.5 in, half out. They'll learn half in Rudi Outs, right? Arabian in, 1.5 out. So they have the 1.5 in, they have the 1.5 out. So they have the feeling of 1.5 in and the feeling of 1.5 out from a pike. So I'll make them do 1.5 pike Rudi. And usually, like, the time to do a pike in the middle of Miller pike is like you have not much time. So their pike is already like barely a pike. So then eventually, as they get more comfortable, right, that pike becomes less of a pike and less of a pike and evolves into a straight position. And then they're doing global twists, 1.5, 1.5. And it depends. I haven't taught full straight for my athletes. At least not yet in my career. I've taught the drills and progressions, but never the whole thing. But I'm definitely open to it, and I think it's important, at least to learn the drills, right? The back, full spotting,
Absolutely.
cruise, duck under, you know. But I haven't taught the full cruise, Brenny straight to feet.
So
But
how do your
I would
athletes
like
do
to.
full straight?
So they don't do full straight. My athletes only do 1.5
See,
Brenny pike.
my athletes
Yeah,
do full straight. See, but
yeah,
my athletes do tuck, pike, and straight. I think full straight is very important. It's one skill. It's much easier than tuck and pike after you do it correctly. Much
right.
easier. Now,
I agree.
after that, when
You
you want to
just
start the Miller to the tuck and the pike or the straight, I really don't see a problem either way. I just think it's
Mhm.
very important for them to do full straight. Full straight is a phenomenal skill, and after they learn it, it's so much easier than any other skill.
right. No, I agree. It's like a roller coaster. You just go up
Like a
and
yeah.
back, and then you're just holding
Woo!
on.
Yeah. Okay,
I
okay.
agree.
Gary's saying that he likes your 1.5 front Rudi
Front,
pike. I think
yeah,
you should do it again, Steven. I think Steven is going to do it today, and we'll put it on next week's video.
yeah, right. On like the little aerobic trampoline at home. Yeah, not enough squatting in the world. Even if I squatted my house, my legs wouldn't be strong enough right now to do that. Oh my gosh.
Are you
But
saying you're weak? Is that what you're saying? That you're weak? Okay, Steven. Thank
I'm
you. And
too weak
conversation
to
is
do that.
over. Yeah. Well, thank you. That was great.
But this is funny. This story about the 1.5 in, 1.5 out, triple pike is I never went back to progressions. I don't want to say never. It wasn't common, right? I learned my half. I didn't really do Arabian 1 and 3s or Arabian double fronts. We would do like Arabian 3/4, Arabian to feet, but I wouldn't do like the double progression. Same thing with full. Once I learned the 1.5 in Brenny out pike, I stopped doing 1.5 duck under. Same thing for the full Brenny. And then I got a invitation from Dimitri to go to the FIG Academy as a demonstrator at the Academy level 3. So learning multiple twisting, double and triple somersaults. So I was like, Dimitri, is there something I have to prepare or do? He's like, no, just like the normal stuff you can do. And I'm like, can you give me some things? And he's like, okay, and he's like, you have to do this, 1.5 duck under, all the progressions for full and Rudi out, Triffus Rudi out. And at the time I was like, I had done Triffus Rudi out, but not comfortable. So I was like, okay, let me start practicing Triffus Rudi out. And it was probably the scariest few weeks of my life, going back and learning all of these progressions I hadn't done in years. And after that, I came back from that trip and I was like, Tanya, I want to do this skill, that skill, this skill, that skill. I want to do this. And I was like, I felt so free, so awesome, right? But if you had asked me to do it on my own, I wouldn't do it. But because I had a paid trip to go to Venezuela and be the demonstrator, I was like, oh man, I really have to do these things, right? So, and that's why, like, I share that story with my athletes, hoping they could understand. Like, I seriously felt like I was like chains were released and I could do anything. So then that's where I came up with the idea. I was doing these 1.5 duck unders. I was like, let me try 2 and 3. I was like, let me do 1.5 Triffus out. And I did it and I was able to put it in a routine. And I was like, why not try Rudi out? So it took me a couple tries and I fell a bunch of times, but I made it. And it's only thanks to those progressions.
Yeah. See, and I think progressions are extremely important. My athletes still do progressions, and I think whenever we come back to the gym, that's going to be what they're going to do the most. To be honest, progressions.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. So let's keep trucking away at these. Hold on. Looks like our Instagram just went down. All right. So why don't you start another live?
I cannot.
You cannot?
Nope.
So let me make a live.
Wait. I can.
Okay.
You are now live. You can join again.
All right.
I don't know if we have a time. Yes, maybe. Only if you do the 1.5 front pike.
When? I already did it. I'll send you a video.
If you do the 1.5 front pike. I want to see it again.
Boom. All right. And we're back up on Instagram. All right. So
why don't we go to the next questions we have from Elon Enton? I don't know how you say that name. You want to read it,
Mhm.
Steven?
Sure. So it says, what do you prefer as a coach for your juniors? Do you prefer to make the routines as difficult as they can with rather poor execution and work on execution later, or let them learn only new elements when they can do the previous ones with exact technique and execution? This might be causing, and then I think there's a little bit of a opinion thrown in here. This might be causing that they do not learn so many difficult jumps when they are seniors. So basically the question is, which approach do you take? Do you learn lots of skills and push the difficulty first and then clean it up? Or do you take it one skill at a time and focus on execution before you take to the next step?
So I know this is going to sound like a very weird answer, but my answer is in the middle. It's
Right.
neither one entirely or the other one entirely. And don't get me wrong, I was probably the system that I was brought up was totally, I was late starting in the sport. So the number of skills that I achieved was, when I say late, took a long time to start skills. But my first half out was with 14 years old. So obviously people don't do half outs with 14 years old anymore. Obviously from 14 to 16 and 17, I did a lot of skills, right? But when I started coaching, my philosophy was, okay, if they're physically strong to do the skills, let's do the skill, let's do the skill, let's do the skills with proper progressions, not pushing, but do the skills, and let's focus on execution later. And it's easier to do that way, because then we don't have to manipulate and help and spot and when they're older and bigger, obviously. And now I'm a little bit more in the middle. It's just, if I see that the athlete is ready to go to the next skill, I'll do it right there. I don't delay it until the execution is perfect. I don't. I see the progressions. I like the progressions. I see if the progressions as any major fault that I believe will make him regress later or make him not do that skill correctly, they will stay in that progression until I like it. But if that progression is okay, even though the execution is not great on other skills, I will let them do the skills, and whenever they get stronger, they will be able to improve on that execution. Because if I was able to improve on that execution the way that I jump, I can assure you that other athletes are able to improve on their execution as well. Because I was terrible. I was literally terrible at execution. So
Um, I think that's good in the middle, right? It's a tough answer, but
it is a tough answer.
I think my answer is more pertaining to routines, right? So, and it also is the individual, right? I had an athlete that, like, the only way she would get motivated and come in is if she was working towards a new skill, and she wasn't that excited about difficulty and routines. And so you kind of have to feed to the individual a little bit. But I fill a routine, and as they're filling the routines, they'll start working on the next skill. So, for example, when an athlete's doing the normal 11-0, right? I think the standard routine: Rudi out, double back, Rudi out, back layout, half in, half out, double back pike, Bernie straight, double lay. Right? They're already working on half in, half out pike, and they're working half and half out pike to put into the routine. When they're working on half and half out pike to go into the routine, they're working on the skill afterwards in the progression. So they might be working on full and half out. So then when the half out goes into the routine, the full and half out moves up to the next space and starts getting ready for the routine. And then when that skill is getting ready to the routine, they start working on, so there's kind of like 3 markers, right? In the routine, getting ready for the routine, and then the skill after that. And that's kind of how they feed into that. Yes, sometimes there's 2 skills going on at the same time, maybe like double back pike and a half out or something like this, and that kind of follows suit. But that's kind of the strategy that I take, those three markers. And if there's not really a reason why I teach a skill if it's not going to go in a routine. When they become junior elites, 15 years old, 16 years old, maybe we'll start playing around with some fun skills. Even senior elites, fun skills that maybe they're not going to put in the routine, like a half in Randy out or something like this. But for the most part, that 3-step process is what I follow.
I agree with that. I think that's great, and that's a little bit of what I do as well. I think that's the best way to do it, to be honest. We have a couple interesting questions here from Jorge Chang.
Hey,
What do you
Jorge.
think about add an extra out bounce at the end of the routines in order to prevent knee injuries? I mean, 2 out bounces and then
Right.
stop.
So
So I
you
can
have a
tell you,
high one, a
yeah,
half one, and then stop. Yeah.
I can tell you this was discussed at the FIG level, at the TC level, because I think it's understandable that we see that those athletes, we can have serious knee injuries because of that. So that was discussed. The biggest problem is it was never really found a way that, okay, how much bigger can that out bounce be? The second one, how are you going to measure? How the judges are going to quantify it? I think everything just becomes so complicated whenever we have to um, how do you say, to give them a score, to judge it, right? So in my opinion, that's just my personal opinion, I think the judges should just be more lenient with the landings. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay, it shouldn't be so strict. If they kill it and stop, it's a 0, but if they move their arms a little bit, it's already a 1. And
Right.
if they kill it, stop it, they're a little bit out of balance, and then they step, it's already a 1 or a 2. I just think the landing should be a little bit more lenient. I don't want to see anyone stop and then crawl all the way to the pads or just put their hands on the ground. I don't want to see that. Obviously, that person needs to be penalized compared to the person that just stopped and moved slightly. But I think
Yeah.
that even those athletes that do a stop, but they don't really stop, they do a tiny out bounce that stop and then stop. I think that should be accepted. Just my personal opinion. I really think that that's something that should be change and should be observed to figure out a way to protect our athletes, because I agree. I think protecting their needs is very important, and I think that the stopping after the out bounce is one of the parts of our routine that is very dangerous for that.
And I think with the 4x4 inclusion and inclusion of time of flight, it's kind of you're penalizing the people that are jumping higher because they have to kill their bounce from a much higher place, right? So, but let me ask you a question. When I think back to kill bounce at the end of my routine, I get pain in my back still. I don't remember pain in my knees. Did you have pain in your knees? I remember my lower back hurting so bad every time I killed the bounce.
I had pain in my knees, and if you don't do it properly, it's really painful if you don't do it properly. Yes, it's a motion that it needs to be very, very assertive. If it's not assertive, if there is a little bit of doubt in that motion, in that action, you're gone. It needs to be like, and there's like a little pause there. You know, the Russians are flawless at doing it. You look at them, watch some videos, and they're flawless. They're very assertive when they stop the trend. Very, very assertive.
So I did an Instagram video probably 4 years ago, maybe, on kill bouncing, and basically it's an eccentric loading of the trampoline, right? You're going into a squat position slowly, trying to get the force. So one of the reasons why, like later on in my career, after I started weightlifting, my kill bounce didn't really hurt as much and it was a lot easier, was because I could put 200, 250 pounds on my back and squat slowly with 200 pounds on my back of force, right? And it's and when your knees pop up pretty much to your chest, you're in a full squat, right? So your legs kind of absorb the landing and pop up, your knees pop up, and then you put them back down. And it's, if you don't practice squatting and you don't have that mobility or flexibility to bring your knees to your chest and squat all the way down, then yeah, it's going to hurt because now you don't have the flexibility for it and you're being slammed into it, right? Imagine someone who can't touch their toes and then someone just jumps on their back and pushes them all the way down. Yeah, it's going to hurt. So I did a video. If you guys are interested, you can dig through my Instagram and see. I took some videos, slow motion, and put them side by side with the squatting and the kill bouncing, and you can kind of see the comparisons and how, in my opinion, how much of a necessity it is to be squatting. You don't have to squat that much weight, obviously, but I think if you're going to be kill bouncing, you need to have the mobility to be able to squat all the way down.
We'll try and link that video on the description as well whenever we're done, because I think that's a really interesting video.
Yeah. So Jorge has another question here. Also, as a judge, I've seen a lot of gymnasts losing tenths at the very end of the routine, and maybe it is because stopping the routine is not practice and training for security reasons. Yeah, I mean, I would only practice it leading up to the competition a few times to save my knees and my back to make sure that I wasn't
But
getting
I think
hurt.
more than security reasons, it's just not something that that athletes practice a lot. It's just they finish
Yeah.
the routine, they just keep bouncing until there is no more bouncing for them to get off the tramp. I feel like it's a little bit of a mindset as well. Yes, pushing too much towards it, it would not be great for their physical ability, no doubt. But I think there's also a little bit of relax. Whenever we finish the routine, we just stop. And how many times
What
have I done that?
what is your opinion while we're here on the Canadian kill bounce? So if you're not
Ooh.
familiar, the Canadians, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it started with Matt Turgeon.
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know who it
That's
started with.
that's
For me, it's
I know.
Canadian.
You think it went back before Matt,
I really don't know. Maybe they can tell us. Someone can tell
right?
us in the comments. For
So
me, it's
I
just
know,
Canada.
right? So
Canada
I
style.
know I heard from someone else that Dave was saying, why lose tenths? If you can lose tenths on an out bounce, right, for instability, why do it? Just stick your last skill. And for me, like, first of all, it's hard to argue with one of the most decorated coaches of all time, right? This is just my opinion, but I don't think that's the safest or best option to go about, to try to stick, especially if you're doing a Miller or a Miller Plus twisting into the bed. I think the out bounce is for safety reasons.
Okay, but okay. Let's separate things here. Okay. First of all, if you can stop the skill right after with no outbounds, look at how much control does it give you on the skill. Okay.
I disagree.
Because what do you mean you
Yeah.
disagree? It's much
Okay, so
harder
look,
to
if you do optional through the jump, how much harder is that? Because in order to jump straight up, you need so much more control, right?
yes,
So in order to do
but
the
for you to
outbounds,
be
you can
able
correct.
yes, but for you to be able to have control at the end of the skill to stop on that precise moment, it's not so easy either. A
No,
lot of
but I
people
think
don't
it's
see
harder to
enough in the end of
outbounce.
the last skill. Okay, so I don't think
Right,
so.
and if you're falling to your face, right, what happens? You kill bounce. You don't jump off the trampoline flying forwards, right? If you're falling short, you kill your bounce, because you're I think killing bounce shows instability, right? Because if you're forwards or backwards, you can kill your bounce. But if you bounce from those angles, you're out, right? In order to show
Yeah, but
control, you have to be
to
straight up
be
and down.
ready for that. You need to be prepared for that. I don't think it's that as easy as you're saying. I think you should go do the 1.5 front Rudi and then kill the bounce right after, and
I
then tell me how
did,
it is.
because I did not outbounce because I didn't have enough control. I was landing short, so I
So
just
where did
kill
you go?
bounced.
So where did you
I kill
go? Went
bounced.
through the springs on your head.
No, I kill bounced and I ran away
It's
because
not
I
the
was coming
same
in at a
thing.
short angle.
It's not
Yeah.
the same thing as killing the boss under control.
So, but I mean, you do that drill as well. I think most people in the world do that drill where you put a straight bounce in between each skill, right? And that's to show stability
Yes.
and the proper angles of entering and exiting the trampoline, right? If they're off balance, that straight bounce is going to go elsewhere. So
Okay, let's move on to the next question. We have more
all right, let's
interesting
go.
questions now. Okay, so Gary asks, how long would you want the half out consolidated before starting Rudi out, and would differ for boys and girls? You want to start? I can start if you want.
Sure.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead. You start.
So for me, it's actually pretty simple. Whenever they do the first half out, tuck and pike, whenever they do both, and I see that they're under control, I start them on the progressions for the Rudi out. I start them on the half out to doggy, land, half turn, then 1 and 3 full down. The moment they have half outs and 1 and 3 full down, I'm not very worried anymore. I let that half out get consolidated more, and that drill for the Rudi out get consolidated more. Whenever they do the drill that I don't have to spot anymore, that tells me a lot. And then it comes the biggest question in this part, I think, which are that long have they been jumping for? Because if they're older, I think that's going to be faster. But if they're very young, they might not even be strong enough to even do Rudi outs, but they can do the drill, the 1 and 3 full down easily, right? And then at the same time, I try to help him with other drills. Steven loves to do Rudi tucks and pikes. I don't do them as much, but if I have the time, why not? It's good. It's great. Do them too. So I do the half outs and then do a lot of drills, 1 and 3 full down to prepare for the Rudi out. And usually, I can't say that I'm the most experienced coach in the world, but usually it takes about, I would say, 5 to 6 months for me to see that they're even ready to try a Rudi out. Sometimes even more. I had kids that took a whole year to even try the Rudi out. But it
depends on the age too.
Depends on the age. That's what I was saying. But the progression, I think they can do the progression easy. Anyone can do 1 and 3 full down. I know a lot of people are scared of 1 and 3 full down. I know that. Okay, I've done plenty of clinics to understand that no one likes 1 and 3 full downs. But then whenever they start doing it, oh, this is actually not that easy, not that hard. And I'm like, no, it's not that hard at all. So my kids do it right away.
Yeah. So the same thing that I was kind of talking about before with the half outs, right? So the athletes learn half out in the routine, they learn 2 half outs in the routine, and then once they have the 2 half outs in the routine, they're starting to put back doubles in. That's when they're really training the Rudi Outs. And until they're doing the 9-1, the 5 doubles, the 4 at the beginning and the double A at the end.
4 and 1. Yep.
Until they can do that, that's when I put the Rudi out in. So that might be when they learn 2 half outs, right? There's 8-0 or 8-5, 9-1. There's a few steps, progressions before they get there, but they're doing the progressions probably while they're still learning the progressions for half out, pretty much, right? They're doing full down porpoise, they're learning full out ball out, Rudi ball out, right? 1 and 3s to flat back, and then they're learning half out to doggy, the same thing, right? So they're kind of doing it at the same time.
Yeah, even just a full down tuck, pike and straight, they do that since they're like level 10 or something like that, or even less than that. So it's easy to keep them doing those progressions, little progressions, just with a single somersault, and then whenever they want to go for the Rudi out, it's already there. It's ready to do that jump to the Rudi out and the 1 and 3 full down. So I agree. You want to go to the next question?
I think that's a good question. I think a lot of people put in the Rudi Outs, and also I think a lot of people are putting in the Rudi Outs way before, well, with a really bad Rudi, right? So I think the Rudi absolutely needs to be
just
mastered.
doing Rudi Outs with no progressions whatsoever. Just learn onto a pit, and here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Instagram, can you hear me? Yeah, they can hear me now. Sorry about that, guys.
So Gary asked, okay, do you think there is a difference between boys and girls? For me, it's the same thing. I don't really have ages for one or the other. Is whenever opinion. They go through their progression. If I see that they're mentally ready when I talk with them, they understand the skill, they do not understand the skill, or they're like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing yet. They're like, okay, not ready, clearly, right? But if they're ready, and you see on their mannerisms if they're ready or if they're not ready, if they're in control, if they're not in control, and that's. For me, I actually, I don't know. I think up to a certain age, boys and girls are the same, and then boys start to get much stronger. Girls are more mature mentally. It's just different after a certain age. But until a certain age, they're all the same.
I think probably 13, 14 is when the men and the women start to right. Yeah. I think the men learn around 13. The men are already learning full Branny, maybe even some drills for Triff, right? And the women are still around 13 years old, learn around 11-0 difficulty, and then 14, around the age 14, maybe 11-8, right? And that's, I think 13, 14 is where they split. But I agree with you. Up until then, I have 13-year-olds, men and girls and boys doing the same routine at my club. So it's, that's fine.
So Gary has one more question. Do you think we'll start seeing quads getting used when the new cycle starts?
I feel like we had this discussion, right?
We already talked a little bit about yes, and I think discussion several times.
Yeah, I think people want to see it, man. It's give the people what they want, right? But
make America great again. Oh wait, make trampoline great again.
Right. I don't think from an athlete's perspective, no, I don't think we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see quads. I wouldn't do quads. I don't think it's a smart idea. I don't think. I think there's way more ways of getting difficulty before you start adding in quad. And for those, I know it's spectacular to see and it's shiny and something new, but that skill to put in a routine is way more risk than what it's worth. So unless the FIG changes the code of points on difficulty, I don't think it's worth it to do quads, right? You agree or disagree with that statement?
I agree with you, but I still think we're gonna see some people trying quads. But I agree.
Yeah.
I think the especially the men in this case, because we're not gonna see women doing quads, but the men, they can easily put maybe one more triple, two more triples in their routines, depending on who the athlete is, because some people are already pushing 6. So I think we're gonna be able to see that the quads. I agree. That it's the reward
Yeah.
of doing the quad is not there yet. If the code of point changes, if the difficulty changes, maybe. But right now,
Yeah.
I think it's not worth it.
I think we're gonna see more people catching up to the 5 triples. I think that's gonna be the next step. There's gonna be, instead of, I don't know, 8 or 10 people that are doing 5 triples right now, I think we're gonna see 20 people doing 5 triples. And then those top ones, I think we're gonna see 6 triple thrown in. I think we're gonna see Travis Rudi out tuck. We might see even Travis Rudi out pike. I know Tets did it. He started full front half pike, and then third skill was Travis Rudi out pike. I think that, we're gonna see more, and I think we're also gonna see the Miller is no longer going to be the finishing skill. The Miller is going to be put in the middle way more often. The Miller is going to be 6th skill, maybe 4th, and everyone's going to be ending maybe with a half triff or a Miller plus, right? A quadruple twisting double layout.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, Dimitri, the poly rouge.
That's a whole nother conversation for later. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we'll see that many quads, but I still think we'll see a couple. I think it opens the door to some, but because it has been tried in the past, just not very successfully, but it has been tried in the past. I just think the connection out of that skill, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Steven, I think you need a new phone.
I don't know what's going on with the Instagram. I don't know why
I think it's your
my
phone.
microphone. You know what it is? I bet you. Hold on. I know. My computer and my phone are fighting for my Bluetooth of my headphone, probably.
Oh, just turn off the Bluetooth on your phone then.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So Gary has another question, or not a question, more of a statement. Says that 18.2 and 18.4 will become the norm, like the current 4 triff voluntary routines. Possible. It's possible.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was talking about, his next comment was about Constantine. That we talked about him in other podcast as well, right? Constantine, who did 6 triples for.
Yep.
I mean, again, that's great. That guy pioneered our sport to some degree, that people saw those triples and said, hey, that can be done. And now people are doing those triples. I'm really, really surprised that the back 1.5 front half is not way more common. The skill is not that difficult to do, right? If you have a good full pike, it's really not that hard. So I think that's going to be another that's going to be another stepping stone. All right, so Trampoline USA says, do you think athlete placement will change after quarantine due to different amounts of effort put in at home?
I think it will have an impact. I think there was some athletes working really, really hard, and some athletes that never stopped training in the gym because they were lucky enough that they were able to do it, and other athletes that didn't really train as hard, and the other athletes that didn't really do the maximum that they could probably be doing. And there's cases like this all over the world. So I think we're gonna see some differences. I think so, because it also depends when the next competition is, because when are we gonna be able to place them? because if the next competition is January, let's imagine, right? There's still plenty of time to go back to form, right? But I'm not going to deny that the training that these athletes that gave 110% at home, it's there. It's going to make an impact whenever they go back to the gym. They're going to be stronger than what they were before. The others will have to catch up. But
yeah,
I've seen plenty of strong people jumping on a trampoline and crashing, and plenty of non-strong people jumping on a trampoline and being successful. So it's very much of a mental game. So it's possible that depending on where the competition is, we'll see some changes or not. I think if the competition was a month after everyone starts, we would see changes. But if it's not a month, if it's only 6 months, then that gives time for them to go back to their normal routine, I think. Or close.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that as far as the time frame plays a huge role in the answer of that question. But I don't think it's going to change much in the rankings. I really don't. I mean, I don't see anyone sitting at home at that high level twiddling their thumbs, right? If you're at home, you're improving your strength, improving your flexibility. You're doing something, right? I don't think anyone is, maybe who's, I don't know, 8th, 10th, 12th in the world is just sitting at home like, yeah, I'm 8th in the world. I got nothing to worry about. I don't think that's happening.
Maybe not at that level, but the lower level. But I agree with Gary here. Belarus are going to be even more dominant as they kept training throughout the pandemic. I think he's onto something.
Yeah, and I think the Russians might have like an opportunity to train isolated away from the community in the forest, right, where their summer camps are. So I think the Russians might have an opportunity to train and keep social distance and isolation. So yeah, it's tough. It's especially for Americans. The gyms are all shut down, and I think some parts of the country
are starting to
open.
Yes, some are starting to open. So, okay, Steven, I have a good question for you. You mentioned using CrossFit and the weightlifting techniques in conditioning. What specific skills, techniques would you recommend coaches looking at? That comes from Easy Milne Smith.
Yeah, so that's a long question. But so one of the things that I'm looking for at the young age, right? So I'm looking for ankle, knee, and hip mobility. So are they able to squat, right? I'm looking for their positions in the squat, how upright they can be, right? If their butts are real far back and they're really leaning really far forwards, they might be missing some hip or ankle mobility, and then we can address that, right? So I think every athlete should be able to squat with their chest up, knees out to the side, tracking over their toes, in order to be healthy enough to jump, right? If you can't do that, then you might have some ankle issues, which then might go to your knee or, to your back. And then I'm looking for, can they hinge at the hip, right? So basically, are they able to hinge at the hip, right? Bend at the hip with a flat back without overarching or going into flexion or extension too much, trying to keep a neutral back and just hip hinging, right? And that kind of stuff, if you're able to move there and you're able to squat and you have the mobility, then from then on out, right, all the movements are, I don't want to say safe, but at least you have the general foundation to move in a well manner with weights, right? So whether you're doing a kettlebell swing is hip hinging, right? But can you already do good mornings with that neutral back? So those are some of the main things that I'm looking for going into other weightlifting, power cleans, power snatch, kettlebell swings, and stuff, movements of the sort.
So, Steven, we have one final question here, and I think it's probably close to time for us to be done. We have talked plenty. We'll do other Q&As. But what are your thoughts on athletes who started the sport later than most athletes, meaning ages 13 and above, or even just someone who started much later than most of their teammates? What do you think? What's their percentage of success? What do you think they can achieve?
I think it depends on their background, honestly. I think if someone's coming in at 13 and they can't touch their toes and the most athletic thing they did was play some video games, then I think that's going to be tough. Can they be good at trampoline? Yes, absolutely, right? I'm not putting them into a box. Are they starting a little bit behind? Are others having a head start? Yes, right? So if someone comes in from artistic gymnastics, if someone comes in from karate or something that has flexibility, has coordination, right? I think they're that, yes, absolutely, at 13 years old, they can be good at trampoline. And I think sometimes those create the best athletes, right? Because a lot of times when, I don't want to say it's time wasted, but it's a slow process when someone starts at 3 years old, that you're just drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling. And if they kind of have that understanding at 13 years old, they come from artistic gymnastics or karate, or there's probably a bunch of other sports that I'm missing. And they have the mental capacity to understand what they're doing and listening and make those changes and adaptations that you're asking from them. I think 13 is a great age. You know, I don't think it's ideal. I think for me, the ideal age to start is probably around like 7 or 8 years old.
So I agree with you, but I don't want people to think that starting at 13 is a limiting factor for success, because I don't think it is. It depends on a lot of conditioning, like you said, but I think it's possible. Maybe not the easiest, but I think it's possible. And with 13, I think it has one big advantage, which is if you get in with 13, it's because you really, really want to do that sport. Okay, you don't start before and then you lose motivation and then you come back again and you're like up and down. With 13, you already kind of know what you really, really want. So you're going to give yourself 100% and you're going to learn things even faster than probably some of their teammates. So why don't we finish for today? And I just want to thank everyone for being here. Make sure you guys subscribe and like on the video. And I want to let you know about the giveaway that we have starting on next week. So Veriflight was kind enough to give us a unit, 2 sets of sensors that can go into 2 trampolines. You can do time of flight and synchronize. And we're gonna random pick a comment from episode 12 video. So that comment will have to be liking Veriflight and Trampoline Insight on Facebook and Veriflight and Trampoline Insight on Instagram, as well as leaving a comment on the video, because through the comments it's how we're going to pick. So if we only have one comment, that's going to be the winner. So the more comments we have on episode 12, that's how we're going to random pick a winner.
Absolutely. I want a free Veriflight system. I want more, right? So we can put them on all the trampolines. So
maybe I'll leave a comment too. I think that should not be possible, Steven. You and me.
No, we can't win. No. Right? And if it picks up traction, maybe we'll start giving some more stuff away.
Yeah. We're always welcome sponsors, I guess.
I think Nuno said something about giving away his Tesla.
Who would not welcome sponsor? I don't think so. So. If someone wants to buy my Tesla, they can buy my Tesla. So I can buy the Model Y. Just kidding. I like my car too much.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. That was a lot of fun for us. I hope that was a lot of fun for you guys as well. I hope we can do it again in the future. I think this is how we learn, and this is how I learned, right? Is having this discussion that Nuno and I had with you guys, with other coaches at clinics and competitions. So thank you guys. I hope you guys learned. Hope you guys had some fun, maybe some chuckles, some laughs, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye, guys. Don't forget to share and like and subscribe, because the more you share and the more we reach other people, the more we can get more people involved in trampoline. That's all we really want, to be honest.
And then trampoline grows bigger than artistic gymnastics.
Yep, that's our goal. Bye, guys.
All right, guys.
See you all soon.
Bye.